evening, everyone. Pleasure to be here. First of all, I'll start with a funny, slightly sentimental story as I explain my background. This very room, I realize right now, was the first room where I gave a public speech about UiPath to a group of students back in 2017, very early on. The company was still small, nobody had heard of it. Series A had not happened yet even. And we were here on these hallways trying to advertise UiPath to young students. And yeah, a couple of the people who were here in the room actually decided to apply to an internship at UiPath back then and are still with the company today, I'm happy to say. And I remember this room because one of them last time I went there stopped me in the elevator and said, do you remember in March 2017 when you came to a job fair at the Polytechnic of Bucharest? Like, yeah. So yeah, funny story. I am currently leading, I'm currently leading Tech Angels Romania, which is the largest business angel group. It's been around for 11 years now, 140 members in Romania and abroad. Very eclectic group, very different people who have made their careers and have built significant wealth to be able to invest in various domains, technology, but not only, lawyers, real estate, agriculture, construction. The beauty of such a group is that when you come speak to a group of investors, to an angel network, you're not going to find just people who are passionate about technology, but people who understand various business domains. I'll come back to, throughout my talk tonight, I'll come back to the importance of pitching in front of angel groups and why I believe it's important and what the value that can bring to those of you who will actually get to the next level and be looking for investors. Before Tech Angels, I was in the executive team of UiPath. I was the chief people officer there for 3 years. Although my background is not in HR and I don't hold a degree in psychology, oftentimes in tech companies, as they scale, you find that certain positions are better filled in marketing, HR, for example, by people who understand technology. Prior to UiPath, I was leading a company that was doing IT assessment of skills, let's say, and IT recruitment. And prior to that, I was a software engineer for about 10 years, which served me a lot in my capacity as chief people officer of UiPath because it's useful to understand what you're talking about when you're trying to pitch a company to people that you're trying to hire. The subject of today's talk is going to be how to build investable teams. Right? I'm sure it's a question that a lot of you have. I'm sure you're thinking about it. I'm sure for those of you who have graduated from the hackathon and are moving to the next phase, you're asking yourself, what should my team look like? What kind of people should I be looking for? How do I look for them? We're going to try and answer these questions. I'm going to start with some, let's say, basic rule of thumb things that I've seen over numerous years in IT recruitment, in building out UiPath, in working with the companies I invested in the past 4 years. I have a portfolio of about 17 startups invested so far, so plenty to talk about from that experience. But I would like to ask you, even during this first part, if you would like to interject, if there's something that stands out that you don't understand or that you feel needs clarification, please raise your hand and let's discuss it right away. Don't wait for the full 10 minutes until I finish these to discuss, okay? And then we can build on that conversation and engage. Hopefully you have some questions also on this topic. So, counterintuitively, I guess, I'm going to start with don't build a team for investors. As you're building your team, as you're building the team of your startup, don't build the team with investors in mind, all right? Build a team that is passionate about solving the problem you're trying to solve, doing what you're trying to do. As investors, what we actually care about is when we look at a team, we want to see a group of people who is full of enthusiasm, who springs out of bed in the morning to passionately work on a problem that they believe needs fixing, okay? A lot of times I hear founders, or I get this question from founders, what would make my appeal for investment grow as a founder and as a startup? And it's really a first principles kind of approach that you have to put in play here. Don't think about the investors right now. You have a road ahead of you of several months where many of you are trying to build something into an MVP, maybe put something together for a demo. Some of you will then go through some acceleration programs. There are numerous acceleration programs available in Romania or abroad that you can go through if you wish to do so, or you can continue working on your own, and at some point you reach the stage where you'll discuss with investors. Take it one step at a time. Focus on what you're trying to solve today, please, not have the investors in mind. And since we are talking about, let's say, first principles, beware of team dynamics as you're building out your team. It's kind of an easy trap to fall into, not to think of that. You come across somebody, maybe in this group or from outside this group or from your network, who you think is a great person that you could work with. But reality is, finding team members and getting them on board with your vision and with what you're trying to build is very, very, very difficult. And there's a way to tackle that, though. I think the most important question, especially if you're trying to build your co-founders team right now. Well, in a sense, all small teams are co-founders teams. Everybody needs to have a co-founder attitude at this stage of the company. But if you're especially thinking about co-founders, I believe that the number one question that you need to answer, you and the people you're trying to bring on board need to answer is, what happens when we disagree? How do we disagree? What happens when there's a situation of conflict? Right? What happens when I, as the CEO of the company, disagree with you, the chief technical officer of the company, about the direction we need to head into in terms of, engineering choices, how we're going to solve a specific problem for a specific customer, how much time we're going to dedicate to that? What happens when we disagree? What does the rule book of this company look like for disagreements? And I can't stress how important this is, not in the least, because this will be the first pillar that will define what your company culture is and what your company actually is, right? What happens when we disagree? Please keep that in mind. That is the single most important question you and your co-founders need to agree on as you start the company. You're at the very beginning of the journey, right? You haven't figured out those things yet. You have the opportunity to lay the groundwork right now with the people you're going to bring alongside you. What happens when we disagree, and how do we go about things when we disagree? And this leads me to another, I believe, very important point that few founders think about. Think intentionally about what kind of company you're trying to build. The people I've met throughout this weekend here at this hackathon, they are passionate about the problem they're trying to solve, and they talk passionately about the problem they're trying to solve. Think intentionally about what kind of company you're trying to build, and speak as passionately about the kind of company that you want to build. And there's no, just like for the previous question, there isn't like a secret sauce, a silver bullet, or a single answer. There are multiple types of companies in the world. A company that is working towards solving that's more of a social enterprise will probably look slightly different than a company that dabbles into, automation or infrastructure or cloud or something like that, with a commercial intent. There's nothing wrong with fine-tuning what your company should look like for your mission and what you're trying to solve, but do think intentionally about the kind of company you're trying to build, and then talk about it. One of the best ways for you to validate your idea about the problem you're trying to solve is going out into the world and talking to people, right? Talking to maybe potential buyers in the future, talking to friends and family and colleagues, You're talking to people, and you bounce ideas off those people, and you get insight about the technical problem you're trying to solve. Why wouldn't you do that for the kind of company you're trying to build? Why wouldn't you do the exact same thing? You cannot be too early, in my view, for communicating what kind of company you're trying to build. As a startup, as a very, very early stage startup, you're an inception startup right now. You don't have much, let alone a megaphone to talk about what a kind of a great company you're trying to build. But if you don't start somewhere, you're going to find it very, very difficult to build that out later on, when you might need to bring on board, say, 2 or 3 engineers. If they've never heard of you, your company, what you're trying to build, it's extremely hard. So my advice to you is, please be intentional. Please talk about it. Bounce the idea off people. Talk about it in social media. If you're meeting people that you'd like to hire or bring on board for this endeavor, talk to them about the kind of company you want this to be. And if you've been listening actively, I think there's a thin red line going through what I'm saying. And it's about the culture of the organization you're trying to build. This also relates to the culture of the company you're trying to build. I have also another message that really pertains to what you are doing and the stage of the companies that you're building right now, which is very early. Beware of the differences between, say, co-founders and employees, and simple employees of a company. In essence, right now, everybody needs to have a co-founder mindset and attitude in what you're building. So you want to make sure that the people who come on board with you right now have skin in the game, and they feel like they have skin in the game, and they bring everything to the table. I'm not saying it's impossible to build a successful company, a successful startup by working 9 to 5. I've just personally have not seen it yet. Arguably, I haven't been in this game so long. It's only 10, 11 years in the startup world. But yeah, for me, the first 5, 10 people in the company, when you're still at this family size of the company, there's this amazing dynamic where you can immediately kind of identify somebody who's an outlier, who's not bringing their whole self into the game, who's not giving it everything, right? And the more of those people you have, the less motivated the ones who are believing in the mission, the less motivated they feel. So you want to you don't want to get into that situation, if that makes sense. Try to look for a co-founder attitude in people. And the best way to do that, by the way, is when you talk to them, ask them situational questions. Ask them hypotheticals. What would we do if, just like I said, like what happens when we disagree, right? What happens if there's a conflict between us? What happens if we're severely delayed for the demo day on May 30th, it's May 28th, and we realize we still need to put 7 days of work into this to make it working? What do we do then? What would you do? What could we do together? These are the right questions to ask these people. And last but not least, listen. You're very early on. There's a lot to do, a whole lot to do. And it's when you really put your mind to it, maybe tonight when you put your head on a pillow and really think about everything you have to build, it can be very challenging. But you do need to make sure with the people you bring on board, with the people you already have on board, that you're covering all of your bases. What do I mean by that, cover your bases? Have product covered, have engineering covered, have customers covered, or potential customers, potential buyers covered, or maybe you're into development tools, then have developer relations covered, have operations covered, especially finance. I'm not saying you need to hire for all these functions. I'll get there in a point. But especially finance, have somebody who is capable of looking at a P&L, or that knows what a P&L is in the team. have somebody who can handle investor relations. And when I say have somebody who can handle these things, what I mean is make sure that within this core team that you're building today, you split these responsibilities. I, as the CEO, will handle the product roadmap and vision and so on and so forth, and I will handle the investor relations when the time comes. You, as the chief technical officer, you need to handle all engineering choices, all technical surveillance of the market to see what's going on and what our competitors and other incumbents, let's say, are doing. And somebody else from the team needs to handle operations, the smooth functioning of the company, and maybe have an eye on the finances of the company to make sure that we don't end up in the situation that 90% of startups end up in, which is out of money. That's why I said finance, right? If we hire people, the 2 or 3 people who meet them to interview them are this person, that person, and myself last, right? This is how we do things in this company. But please do make sure to cover your bases and to be able, because ultimately what you're showing if you do this, you're showing that you're building a business, right? This is a business game. It's a very complex strategy business game. This is what you're playing here. I know you think you're developing technology. You're not. You're building a business. As it happens, your business delivers technology. You're building a business. All right. With this said, I'm going to pause for effect and water. And yeah, give you a few seconds to breathe. And let's start taking some questions. First hands raised here, please. Oh, sorry.
Well, we do have a mic. Thank you, Marius. So, first of all, this is also going to be for the people here, but the guys that are online, they can also ask questions. I will take them, and I will just repeat anyway what's going to be said.
Yeah.
You told us to think what happens when we disagree.
Yeah.
Do you think it's the best choice for one member to have the less say on all the departments, or like have someone responsible for the last word in each department, like one for tech, one for marketing, one for financial?
There isn't one single answer here. But in very early stage companies, as the ones I've seen here that are being created here, there's too few people, right? The buck has to stop with someone. It's typically the CEO of the company. And there are certain decisions for which this rolls out over the years, and it remains so that the CEO has the ultimate say. However, as a CEO, you're going to find out if things go as you have planned, you're going to find out pretty soon that you don't understand in-depth finance, marketing, HR, and that you need people who are better than you to handle those functions. And hopefully, I sincerely wish that many of you end up in that position where you have to hire those people, and you're going to have to entrust them with some of the decisions as a CEO. So things evolve over time. I tend to say that, for a core team of 3 to 5 people right now, the buck has to stop with one person. Otherwise, it's too much social engineering instead of proper engineering, if that makes sense.
Okay, so we can take also from back then. We can just say the question. I'll repeat it for the people online. Yes, in English. Or okay. I wanted to be tested.
So I came in the program alone. I formed a team through matchmaking, and also another software company found us on LinkedIn, and they offered us to help us. They liked our idea, and now I have a team of 5 people, me and another 4, plus that company. It's a problem, and it's also a company that wants to help us as a consultancy, and also our co-founders.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a problem? It could be.
I mean, it's not a problem. Grab all the help you can get, but be aware of what you're giving up to be able to get that help. What does it cost you? Does it cost you equity? Does it cost you money that you don't have? So you need to ask yourselves this question. When using external partners, I would also caution you to the fact that their business model is different to yours. They are ultimately, they're more mature than you as a business, and they are responsible for running a business.
Yeah.
They're responsible to their own shareholders and employees and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's a small company.
But if it's a small company and you feel like it can be a really strong partnership and they want to have skin in the game in the form of equity, I wouldn't discourage that, especially if they are people with whom you get along, reasonably well, that you feel can contribute to your mission and who don't have this kind of 9-to-5 attitude, right? That's still important.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think it was one around here.
Hello. Thank you.
Hello.
So my question is regarding the fact that you said that 90% of startups end up out of money.
Yeah.
What are top 5 biggest mistakes that startups do to lose their money?
Overhire, overspend. No, these two. Not 5. Overhire and overspend. I mean, it sounds simple, right? Overspend. But I see so many founders, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say this, I see so many founders who don't know how to look at the finances of their company. They treat the company like, what did you call those little pigs where you put the piggy bank, and when the money runs out, it's run out, and that's it. And that's a major difference. And by the way, I'm giving you an insight into the way I think as an investor, and something I care very deeply about. I invest in founders who have run a business before. That's part of my personal thesis. Why do I do that? Precisely because of this risk. Founders who have never run a business before, they don't know how to look at the P&L, they don't know how to look at the finances, and they treat the money of the company as the piggy bank. Like, some money came in there, and then I pull some money out, and oh my God, it's broken and it's out of money. What do I do now? I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that, honestly, as an investor. I'm an active investor. I have not just skin in the game in the form of money, I actively help the companies I invest in. I help them do things that I know would cost them a shit ton of money to get done today, right? But I can help them overcome that at no cost, and I can help them hands-on with some stuff. If I do that, if I invest that time and energy, I need to have the confidence that those respective founders, from a business perspective, have an idea about what they're doing, and we don't end up in that situation where, oh my God, where are the money? Where's the money?
Okay, so we have one in the back, so if you can just say it and...
So we push a company culture. You're talking about setting company culture very early on. So what kinds of culture do you set? What are the facilities? How does culture look like for an industry startup? Or how should it do that?
Yeah. So here's the thing. When I said you need to be intentional on talking to your company, the way the culture is actually shaped, this is a little bit academic. For 1 minute, please bear with me. I promise you, you won't want to kill me in the end. Culture has several layers. Beliefs, behaviors, and symbols. At the core are the beliefs. Beliefs are things that inform everything in our life. Everything, core beliefs that you hold. I grew up in a relatively poor household with a very scrappy way of managing our resources. So that is something that is deeply ingrained into what I believe. I believe that, people should be scrappy in general and do a lot with less, right? That is a core belief of mine. How does that manifest into my behaviors? Well, I'm not a flashy person. I never would be. If you cross me on the street, you won't know who I am. These are the things I care about as behaviors, right? I don't want to exhibit behaviors that would invite a sort of attention that is not suitable for me. And then as symbols, you're always going to find me dressed in the hoodie with my favorite band. That's a symbol. So these are the 3 layers of culture, right? Now, you as a founder right now, you have to find a way to share your core beliefs with the people you're bringing around you. It's very hard to talk about core beliefs because unless you've been to a psychotherapist for a number of sessions, it's very hard to articulate those beliefs and what informed those beliefs. It's typically stuff that happened when we grew up, okay? So it's hard to do that. The best way to show people around you what you value is through your behavior, your way of being, and showcasing the things that you care about. This is the first level that people will see. They will see how you speak, they will hear you speaking, they will see what kind of language you use. Are you more harsh or are you more refrained in the way you talk to people? There isn't one that's good and the other that's bad. I'm just saying it's two things on a spectrum, right? And everything in between. They will see the way you dress, they will see the way you behave when something upsets you, when something goes wrong, right? They will look at your behaviors, at the symbols you exhibit, and this is how people learn the culture of your company. The best thing you can do is, as soon as you realize something that's important for the culture of your company, to start intentionally talking about it, because this is like you're shortening the path to get to where you need to go. A group of people that will work together for, say, 8-9 months will ultimately gel and find some way to work together. But if you as a founder are intentional about what you're trying to build, you're going to get to that harmony in 3 months instead of 9. When this early on, who wouldn't want that, right? So if there are things that you value right now, that you care deeply about right now, just tell people, this is something I care about, right? Make it clear, don't be shy about that. That informs the culture of the company you're trying to build. Culture is organic. It's not fixed. It's not a poster that we put on a wall and say, this is what we want our company to be. At least not initially. The culture of the company is you as a founder talking about it, talking about what you like, what upsets you, what the kind of behaviors you'd like to see from your colleagues. Did I answer your question?
Great. So we do also have a question from online.
Please.
So if we are not enough people for each role, is it a good habit for someone to take 2 or more responsibilities at the same time at the beginning of the journey? What is your advice?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. As I said on my 5th point, there isn't an expectation for you to cover with one person every role. That's not the expectation. The expectation, however, is to have all bases covered. You need to have somebody thinking about your customer journey or your user journey in your product. You need to have somebody thinking about finances. Might as well be you as a founder, because I think it's an important thing to think about. You need to have somebody who prepares for conversations with investors. You're going to hopefully, I hope as many of you as possible, come pitch in front of tech angels, of our group of angels. It's a very nice experience, I promise you. It's an experience where you learn a lot. And it's a good warm-up for you before you go and talk to, say, venture capital firms or institutional investors. But you need to prepare for that. So, yeah, it's good to have 2 or 3 hats in the beginning.
I think we also have one there. Let's just get a mic.
What actually a duty of CEO and co-founder is?
Okay, sorry, can you please repeat that?
What duty have CEO and co-founders?
Why do we have CEOs and co-founders?
No,
duty.
duty.
Oh, duties.
Duty.
Oh, sorry. I mean, I think the overarching responsibility for everyone with a founder status is to make sure that business works. Everyone who is a co-founder should make sure that business works. I think the extra layer of responsibility that typically goes to the CEO is that they need to be somewhat of an ambassador of the company. So communicating on what the company is doing to the external world. And yeah, the person with whom the buck stops, as I said earlier. In the very beginning, when you're like 3, 4, 5 people, you are the ultimate decision maker. And this needs to be clear, and this needs to be explained to people, whether they're co-founders or not, that when a decision needs to be made, it will be made, and then it will be carried through. So, you know, democracy within a business has a threshold.
Thank you. So we have one here, and after that we can go in the back. And also, okay.
So you spoke a little bit 10 minutes ago about acceleration programs.
Yes.
I was
Can you speak a
wondering-
bit louder?
Yes, sure. So I was wondering what an acceleration program is and how does it differ from a usual investor, let's say?
So accelerators don't invest in businesses. Actually, many of them can cost you money if you want to go to their program. An acceleration is, if you wish, a continuation of the kind of program you're experiencing here, but for the next level. So accelerators have better access to corporations who might end up being buyers or users of your product. They have access to the entire investor network and they facilitate a bit more this matchmaking with investors. So you're now in the phase of, I don't know, you've passed the 0 phase. You're 0.1 to 0.2. The accelerator is 0.2 to 0.3, if that makes sense. This is a pre-acceleration program, then you would go into an accelerator. It exposes you to more people, to a lot more people,
Okay.
a lot more mentors.
So we have one right here. So if you can.
So I'm going to ask you something that probably everybody in this room wants to know. It's more of a 2 questions in one. What are the qualities of a startup that's meant to succeed? When, from your eyes, right, from your perspective, you say, okay, this is a startup I want to invest in, right? Not the qualities we need to possess, the ones we need to show to you for you to invest into us. And the follow-up question will be, what strategies can startups use to validate their market potential?
Their market potential?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'll start with the second one, if you'll allow me. Talk to as many people as possible who have the profile of, if you think that there's even a slim chance that they might be users or buyers of your product, go and have a 15-minute conversation with them. People are a lot nicer than we believe, right? Are a lot nicer than you think. They'll want to talk to you. Tell them, I'm trying to solve this problem. I'm trying to build a company to solve this problem. It looks like you've experienced this pain or something in the neighborhood of this pain. Can we please have a 15-minute chat, and can you please tell me if I'm thinking about this in the right way? Talk to people who might be users or buyers or both of your product. Beware of the distinction between buyer persona and user persona, the person that uses your product, the person that makes the decision to buy the product and gets the money out of the company's pocket and into your pocket. Try to talk to both of those as much as you can. You're early right now. You don't have a lot of time, and you're not a lot of people. You're probably going to end up talking with just a dozen, at best, a dozen such profiles. But find them. Find them. Reach out to your network. Reach out to people in this pre-acceleration program and ask them, how can I talk to potential users or buyers of my product? Should I start a LinkedIn survey? Should I start a Twitter X survey? Should I start an Instagram thing to get some people who will agree to talk to me? But don't presume for 1 second that you know better than the market. You don't. So you need to talk to people in the market. As to your first question, there's always, for every investor, whether it's a person or an institution, there is an intersection of things. I care about specific domains. I might meet an amazing team of people maybe I already know or have followed for years that are building a business in the space of fashion. And as much as I might respect their track record, their experience, and as much as I might believe that their business is going to be successful, I'm not going to invest in that business. Why? Because it's not part of my thesis as an investor. I have limited time, just like you. Just like each and every one of you, I also have 24 hours a day. So I need to dedicate that time to better myself into some areas of business and technology. I personally chose enterprise software, cloud automation, development tools, deep tech. These are the things I care about. And the more I learn, the less I know. This is my everyday story. The more I learn, the less I know. So how could I carve up time, free up time, to start learning businesses that are completely on the different side of the spectrum, like a B2C taxi hailing app? I don't know, I mean, there's probably some business to be done there, as Uber and Bolt prove, but I'm not the guy for that. I'm not the investor for that. There's another factor that comes into play. And by the way, for institutional investors, there's some part of truth in what I said. They also have a thesis. Any venture capital firm has a thesis. So they convinced some people to give them money as limited partners. They take that money and they say, we're going to invest that money, right? Because you believe in us, we're going to invest that money into some startups, but they have to respect some coordinates. So we only invest at this stage or that stage of the company. We only invest in B2C, business to consumer, or business to business, so they define some thesis. When you're talking about an investor, as a founder, you don't know right now, and I know you don't know, but I'm giving you the hack to this. Before you talk to an investor, research that VC or that person. Do a very quick research online. What does Marius Istrate invest in? Google it. What does he invest in? It is, I mean, no disrespect to those of you who are building other kinds of businesses. I'm just not going to invest in yours no matter how great you are because you're outside my scope. Same for the VCs. Let's not waste each other's time. I am respectful of your time. Please be respectful of mine. So there's a way you need to figure out what domains. One thing, domain. I said it's an intersection. Of course the team counts. And of course the kind of team that investor wants to put money in counts. As I said, I favor repeat founders. I'm not completely excluding the possibility that I'm going to invest in some first-time founders. I did a couple of times. If it's something exceptional, I can do it. But I tend to favor repeat founders. So it might be a better time to come talk to me after you failed once. Or not failed once, hopefully. Maybe, success is actually a much better feature than failure, unlike what most people will tell you. What else? Team.
We can circle back and have another question back there. So.
Yeah, this was the question that you said earlier. That I wanted to know if you invest in people that failed once.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Other questions? So there is one there.
Oh, I remembered, sorry. There's one more thing at that intersection that I told you about, market size. It's more for the institutional investors, but also for us angels. We do look at the size of the opportunity. It might be a real problem that you're trying to solve. You might be an amazing founder with a track record already, having been part of a business before, having built a business before. But if there's simply no juice into that market, no money to be made there, then, why not call it something else? It might not be a business. Okay? Yeah.
So a follow-up question to what you said would be, how do you assess how much a company can grow, their growth potential of a startup business model? And also, would you please be able to provide a few examples of successful startups that you managed to attract, invest in, and what made them stand out to you so much? Why did you pull the trigger when you saw them and started investing into them?
Yeah, I'll give the simplest example that you can find in my portfolio, which is FlowXAI. I don't know if you've heard of FlowXAI. Has anybody heard of FlowXAI? No. Maybe Flavia has heard of FlowXAI. FlowXAI is a company founded by serial founders, so people who were the founders and leaders of an IT services company called Qualitans that I've known since 2015. I know the founders there. We have a relationship. We've spoken over the years. In 2019, they were thinking about building something different, building a product company. They were kind of dabbling into this space, but not knowing exactly how to approach it. We kept in contact. I've met with them over several months, several times. I've seen their idea evolve. I've seen their thinking evolve. And finally, it really took off the ground in 2020, sometime towards the end of the year. And I was the first person to write a check to that company because I have the confidence that the founders there know how to build a business that will solve the problem they're trying to solve, and that they'll be able to attract amazing people on the journey with them to solve that problem. FlowXAI is a fintech. It's a way for banks, insurance companies, financial players in general to offer an omni-channel experience to their customers that looks modern and neat and new, kind of Revolut-like, without changing their underlying infrastructure. This is what FlowX does. So it gives companies a development platform that allows them to create mobile app experience, web app experience for their customers, say, KYC, know your customer in a bank. You provide some documents, they get to know you, they open your account, right? You do that in a traditional bank today, you're going to want to pull the hair out of your head. You do it through something developed via FlowX, on FlowX. It's going to look and feel modern, it's going to look and feel like Revolut, even if you're a traditional bank. And you don't have to change any other software in it. This is what FlowX does. Fast forward to today. I mean, it's too early to tell, because it's only a Series A company, but we only have like 2 or 3 of those per year. FlowX raised $35 million Series A from leading investors like Dawn Capital in the UK, which have experience in this domain of expertise. So, so far so good, fingers crossed. And good luck, Flavia.
Minding the time, we still have around 3 minutes and lots of questions, since we need also a break, of course. So I have one online, but I will prioritize the ones that was here because he was staying with his
hand up
around. So can you help me with the mic? And of course, we will send these questions to Marius.
There's also a lady, maybe.
Yeah,
let's give the word to the lady in the back there,
okay,
please,
sure.
and then come back here. I'll take all of them. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Company ownership. That's a very good question. So what should the cap table of the company, what should the company ownership look like?
To say our company ownership so everybody understands.
Yeah. It doesn't have a simple answer. I think as if you're a solo founder right now and you're trying to bring in some people with a co-founder status in your business, you have to give something up. You have to give up some equity. What is reasonable? I get asked this question a lot. What is reasonable? Depends what kind of people they are and how much trust you want to put in them. There are some mechanisms called vesting and reverse vesting to make sure that they only get that stock over time. So there are ways to engineer it, but you will have to give some equity up. You'll have to give something up. The expectation, if I may say so, from an investor is that your cap table is not bloated. When we come in as an investor, that you don't have what we call a lot of dead weight in the cap table, in the structure of ownership. People who have maybe been with the company in the past, retained some stock, but are now out, are not doing anything, and you have like a bunch of those. Right? We don't want to see too much of that. So which puts you in a very difficult position as a founder. You're going to have to give up equity to bring some co-founders. You really want to have to you're going to have to trust them to give them that equity because you want them with you on a long journey. Right? Did I answer your question?
Yep.
Great.
Thank you.
And there was one more here and
Yeah,
here.
but yeah, if you can make it short, that would be amazing.
It's a question for another time. There's no perfect customer. The perfect customer is anybody who's willing to give you money for what you're developing.
Okay, so regarding, as a follow-up question, the last one, how do you quantify, how do you split the equity for the co-founders?
How much do you give them?
I'm sorry?
You mean how much do you give them?
Exactly, yeah.
Depends on how many there are, first of all, and depends on what their roles are going to be. There isn't one single answer. I mean, you might very well get out of this by having one single co-founder with you to whom you give 8, 9, 10, 12% of the company, or you might be in a situation where you realize you need 3, 4 co-founders. And you can't give everybody, 12% to 5 co-founders because then it becomes kind of weird. But you need to balance it based on what the structure of the company will be. And if you want all of those people to truly hold that co-founder hat. I would say, though, always keep in mind, have like something like 15, 20% of the company that you should think should be allotted to employees also further down the road. Smaller percentages, 0.1, 0.2%, 0.5%, depending on the key role they're holding. always have that in mind. And with co-founders, it's a negotiation. Ultimately, they're also, if they come in as chief technical officer or chief business officer or whatever, they're going to ask for something. It's going to be a negotiation. So you're not completely in the dark here, thinking like, oh my God, I'm the one who... You want to make a proposal and you don't know what proposal to make? Look online. What have other companies done?
Okay.
So I actually want
Thank
to
you.
ask, how can I attract more investors?
Last one, okay?
While even though I'm much really younger than a lot of people in this room, for example, and I'm at my first startup.
Do the best you can do to build this as a company.
Okay.
Do the best effort that you can do to build this as a company. Learn as much as you can learn. Age is not a drawback, but it's not a virtue either. You don't get judged by age. You get judged by whether or not you're capable of building a business. Prove that you can build a business.
Okay,
There are founders out there who are 17, 18, 19 years old and who are capable of building a successful business. Yeah? Try to be one of those.
Great. So we're going to stop here the Q&A. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Marius. And a great round of applause, of course.